Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope you enjoyed the short photo exhibition at the start of this webinar. The featured pictures were kindly shared by us, with us by the UNESCO International Center for Tibet, and they are all part of an international photo competition on skills in action. And these photos illustrate so well the broad range of environmental awareness, climate knowledge, and green skills that are needed to build more sustainable and climate resilient communities. So with this, let us start the webinar. My name is Edith Hammer. I'm a program specialist at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the webinar, which is dedicated to the launch of the Greening Communities Guidance, Lifelong Learning for Climate and Sustainability Action. I'm amazed by the large number of participants that are joining today, and it is truly wonderful to see this global interest in promoting local climate action. And I feel that during the last 3 years of the Greening Education Partnership, this global community has really been growing stronger and stronger. The development of the Greening Communities Guidance has been coordinated by the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, by the World Organization of the Scout Movement, and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, together with the Greening Education Partnership Secretariat and a highly dedicated group of experts who contributed their knowledge and experience to make this guidance practical, meaningful, and impactful. Before diving into the guidance itself and exploring what it is about and how it can be used, I would like to share some technical details with you for today. So first of all, the event is being recorded and it will be later available on the UL website. Interpretation is available today in French and Spanish, and I would like to convey special thanks to the UNESCO Learning City of Évry-Courcouronnes for supporting French interpretation. For any comments that you may have, you may kindly use the chat box. And for any questions that you have for the speakers, please share them with us in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to respond to them in writing or during a short discussion slot if time allows in the end. It is my honor now to give the floor to Ms. Isabel Kempf. She's the director of the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and I kindly invite her to share her opening remarks. Isabel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Edith, and really welcome to everyone. It's very inspiring really to see the many countries you're all from and also your diversity. We have here members of the Greening Education Partnership, representatives from the UNESCO Global Network of the Learning Cities, civil society, organizations, policymakers, educators, and so many of us who are really passionate advocates for climate action. And you're all joining us today. Thank you so much. I think as we are here to launch the Greening Communities Guidance, we would like to underline that this is really more than a document developed under the umbrella of the Greening Education Partnership. It is really a call for collective action. And it will provide us with very practical pathways for communities, both urban and rural, and embed lifelong learning into climate and sustainability efforts. In doing so, it also empowers cities and communities to become catalysts for the sustainable transformation that we so urgently need. And the timing could not be more critical. Climate change is not a distant challenge, it is a real present reality. The latest emissions gap report presented by UNEP last week states that the current policies are pointing the world towards a 2.8 Celsius warming by the end of the century, a trajectory that would bring really devastating and irreversible impacts to our ecosystems and societies. So this is a real stark warning, reminding us that education and lifelong learning must be at the heart of urgent climate action. The UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities highlighted this during the 6th International Conference last year. The Dubai Commitment to Climate Action in Learning Cities called for fostering green skills, promoting inclusive learning opportunities, and ensuring that sustainability becomes part of our everyday life and leads to sustainable production and consumption. This guide aligns with that vision, offering very concrete steps to advance on those commitments. So today is a moment to really celebrate also the many contributions of all those who co-created this guide. And I would like to personally thank our team at UIL, the colleagues at UNESCO, FAO, and the World Scouts movement for bringing us together and for bringing so many voices also into this guidance notes. You know, I know coordination is not an easy thing, especially if it's at the international level, but I think the guidance really shows the effect and the many views and perspectives that you were able to bring in. So let this webinar not only be about launching a guide, but really be a part of a next step in strengthening the movement, a movement where communities everywhere embrace lifelong learning as a driver of climate action and sustainabilities. And really, together, we can turn, hopefully, these commitments into action and into a reality. And I would really like to thank all of you for being part of this journey. Many thanks.
Thank you, Isabel. The Greening Communities Guidance, as it was mentioned, was developed within the context of the Greening Education Partnership, which started 3 years ago and is coordinated by the CHEP Secretariat in UNESCO headquarters. And yesterday, the third annual meeting of the CHEP was organized in the context of COP30 in Brazil. And I would now like to give the floor to Ms. Julia Heiss, who is the Chief of Section of Education for Sustainable Development in UNESCO, to share with us how this guidance on greening communities is situated within the wider context of the Greening Education Partnership and also the other standard setting documents and initiatives that have been developed through the partnership. Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Edith. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you today and celebrate yet another milestone of the Greening Education Partnership. As you just said, it was launched at the Transformative Education Summit about 3 years ago and has grown truly into a global effort now, bringing together governments, institutions, communities around one shared mission, namely to prepare every learner in the face of realities of climate change. Over the past 3 years, our gatherings at the COPs, COP28, COP29, have helped to build real momentum. And now at COP30, we are at the turning point. I think it's a real chance to strengthen progress we have made and to make sure that education is firmly embedded in climate action and in climate policy as well. Today, we are particularly pleased to celebrate the launch of the Greening Community Guidance, a resource that was developed by the CHEP partner members. I want to sincerely thank all of the partners of the drafting group of the Working Group 4 for their incredible contribution to the process, which was co-led by, as we heard already, UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. But I would also really like to name the names of very, very committed colleagues, just like you, Edith Hammer, and Katie Jones, from Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. I would like to mention Ruben Sessa and Anastasia Dikonova, and together with the World Organization of the Scout Movement, Cynthia Marquez Pugelli, sorry for the pronunciation, and Joaquin Barafita. So thanks all of you for your incredible effort, and we are very happy and very impressed by the result and very keen to promote it all together. The guidance complements the standard setting tools that we have already launched last year, namely the Greening Curriculum Guidance and the Green School Quality Standards. And it complements the set of resources that support action across all the 4 areas of the partnership. The new guidance provides practical principles, minimum requirements, and concrete actions for communities of all kinds. And we are talking about megacities, we are talking about smaller towns, rural areas, and should support those to design, implement, and strengthen local climate action strategies through lifelong learning approaches. It reflects the spirit of the partnership, namely to be flexible, context sensitive, and rooted in collaboration. And reaching this point has been a significant collective effort, as many of you have said already, and we would like to thank also the many partners and experts who've contributed to with their experience and their insight. The result is a tool we believe will inspire and support communities, including municipalities around the world, to accelerate the transition towards greener, more resilient, and more sustainable futures. As we move forward, let us continue this global mutirao, the effort of collectively moving forward to ensure that education becomes a strategic pillar of climate action and that communities everywhere are empowered to drive change from the ground up. I thank you. Over to you, Edith.
Thank you, Julia, for providing these useful insights also into the broader context in which this publication is launched. And again, thanks to the CHEP Secretariat for your continuous support throughout this process. So we would now like to take a closer look at the sections of the Greening Communities Guidance to explore this publication. And for this, we have asked some of the contributors to the publication to introduce the different sections. So the presentation will be shared by several members of our drafting group. I would kindly ask Paolo to share the presentation slides. Thank you. So looking into the objectives and purpose of the guidance, we can move one slide further already. I would like to start with the main objectives of the guidance and the kind of guidance that it actually provides. So we have developed a document that aims to support the development, implementation, and ongoing improvement of climate action strategies at the local level, as we believe that promoting action at the local level is really where we can drive change the most. And it is a flexible guide that can be adapted to the context of diverse localities. At the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, we work with learning cities, but the guidance really addresses the needs of communities of all size and context, from megacities to smaller and rural communities. It offers clear principles. It states the requirements that are needed to identify and define as a green community, and it proposes a very comprehensive set of actions that are needed to green communities from a lifelong learning perspective. As such, we believe this resource can really contribute to expanding the wider mission of the Greening Education Partnership and strengthen the creation of green communities. So when we started this process, one question that came up at the beginning, but also throughout the process of the drafting group, was, what is a green community? How do we see the vision for a green community also? And these principles, I would say, also refer very much to the underlying principles that guided the development of this document. So in the guide, we consider a green community one where people live in harmony with nature and with each other. It is a place where lifelong learning empowers individuals to take climate action and to make sustainable choices. In green communities, learning is inclusive, it is action-oriented, it is available to people of all ages and backgrounds, really fostering a lifelong learning perspective. And these communities are supported by local governments and policies that enable participation, resilience, and continuous improvement. And I would really like to underline this point, that because we very much promote in the guidance the role of local governments, the role of policy to allow for well-coordinated strategies and implementation. Green communities offer learning across formal, non-formal, and informal settings, and they engage a wide range of diverse stakeholders. So looking into the different sections of the guidance, we have 4 sections and 1 comprehensive annex. And based on this broad understanding, the guidance we have created promotes a whole of community approach. This means that all actors in the community, local government, civil society, organizations, educators, youth, indigenous peoples, cultural institutions, and so forth, play an important role. And importantly, we also promote learning within a diversity of learning contexts, not limited to remits of schools, but really taking place in schools, in parks, in workplaces, but also on digital platforms. Lifelong learning is inclusive learning, and it's rooted in local context. So this ensures that learning is not limited to institutions, but embedded in everyday life. So with this in mind, we will now take a few minutes to introduce the different chapters in a bit more depth. And the first chapter asks a question of who offers learning opportunities for green communities. The second chapter moves into the question of where does the learning take place in green communities. The third chapter asks what is learned, what is the content of learning, and how can it be learned, how can it be instructed. In the fourth chapter, we move to the question of how to develop green learning strategies for communities. And then in the annex, we provide an action planning assessment tool for greening communities that can very practically be used by diverse stakeholders. To start with, I would like now to invite Ms. Cynthia Marquez, the Director of Education and Innovation at the World Organization of the Scout Movement, to take the floor. Cynthia is one of the coordinators of the Working Group for Greening Communities, and she has been involved in the development of the guidance from the very start. Thank you so much for your continuous commitment, and we are very pleased to have the World Scouting as a publishing partner for this document. Cynthia will introduce the section of who offers the learning opportunities for green communities, and the floor is yours, Cynthia.
Thank you very much, Edith, and I can only say that it has been a privilege for us to support, and also it has been a learning process for us, as our know-how and our mandate is education, but participating in such a guideline has been also a learning experience for us. And this is the spirit of the guideline. So how we can identify or in a community who learns from what can be a green community. And you see here a structure of how was the different individuals or stakeholders who will be involved in learning in the community were grouped based on relevance or the nature of them. The guideline tries to indicate what are the different types of stakeholders that can offer green learning opportunities into the communities. And you see that we have governments, civil society, education and academia, change agents, private sector, and others, because the vast range of what makes a community, while the guideline has made the effort to describe it, is really something that was complex to integrate. We are exploring also how, in some of the cases, some of the stakeholders will be part of existing networks or are the ones who are mobilizing individuals. And that's where the interaction between stakeholders also takes another value. It's not only that they provide learning, but also they support and enable others to continue strengthening the social fabric of what a greening community can become. And this work will be built not only into what each of them can provide as entities, but in efforts of how we can avoid duplication and how, by having a big picture of how do we connect with each other, which is the intention of the guideline, we do not duplicate efforts, and rather we amplify the impact of what everybody can do in their own role and in their own action. Also, we want to stress, or the guideline wants to stress, that some stakeholders can be new partners, because during the process, in the diversity of drafting members also and contributors, we identified something that some elements, some entities that might not be the traditional partner in an environmental education or greening community context, but that become instrumental when we try to bring all these alliances together in the community context. Maybe some of the entities will not provide the education per se, but will provide and facilitate and enable the space where people can learn, and then facilitate that the learning happens in a better way, in a safe space, and in a conducive to learning. Also, the guidelines suggest that we need to involve stakeholders that will become change agents, because either they are part of the networks that the entities organize, or not necessarily are part, but are instrumental in keeping the identity of the communities, and also to keep their wisdom in how the community should remain and can become and transform into greener, considering their identity. And we are talking about women, girls, young people, members of indigenous communities, and I will say also seniors who are part of the community, have particular needs, have a particular perspective, and without them, we will not be building a community that is inclusive. So in this case, there will be the combination of the experts, but also the combination of the individuals who are the ones who know better what are the needs, and also who will absorb and integrate what a green community is and slowly ground it into the heart of the communities. We would like also to avoid not to these members, because they also care about their community, and they are part of what will carry on and create a legacy around it. They will be the gatekeepers of not replicating something that will hinder their own development or will put jeopardy into the quality of what a green community can be. With this in mind, stakeholders who are new to the concept of green learning may be the ones who, at the beginning, strengthen capacity, and that's where the municipalities can be the catalyzers of supporting the ones who need to increase capacity. Others will be the ones who are providing the know-how, providing the opportunities, and others will be in the role of mentorship. Others will be in the role of keeping the communities and the mobilizations together, because at the end of the day, what makes communities get stronger is the support of entities, the collaboration, but also how all their members have a shared goal, a shared value, and they start to move together. They adopt this as a movement, and they make their purpose a shared purpose for all. In the field of green learning, we see how throughout the years there's been a quick development. We are learning fast. There are things that are being developed on the go, but also it's clear that the literacy related to that needs to be increased and strengthened so that every member of the community understands what we are talking about and participates in an informed way. And there's a lot of prior experience in this working area that can participate in communities. And with the guidance, we want to make sure that all of these efforts are integrated in a meaningful way. So with that, I'll hand over back to Edith.
Thank you, Cynthia, for these insights into the chapter and also for emphasizing what this guidance document aims to achieve again. So we will now move to the next section on where does the learning take place in communities. And for this, I will hand over to my colleague, Katie Jones, who has been working with us at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning on several projects related to education for sustainable development. And she has played a crucial role in the co-creation process for the guidance document. And for me, she has really been the heart and soul of this endeavor, leading a lot of the communication with the drafting group and also contributing her expertise to the process. Please, Katie, take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Edith. Absolutely. It's been a real pleasure to have been involved in the co-coordination of the guide's development over the last 2 years. So a big thank you once again to all partners involved, and of course to our dedicated drafting group for all of their fantastic contributions. So just for this part of the presentation, let's take a quick look at where learning happens in green communities. So as Edith mentioned earlier, learning can take place almost anywhere, in municipal buildings, schools, homes, workplaces, natural places, and via online platforms, among other spaces. And in green communities, these places really become hubs for community engagement and climate learning. In the guide, we consider that municipal places can include green offices, public transport hubs, and community centres. We also underline how formal education settings fostering green learning can range from early childhood care and education centres to universities and vocational schools. In the guide, we also highlight the role of community places, including libraries, museums, art galleries, and faith-based spaces too. And we take a look at how everyday places such as homes, markets, and workplaces can offer informal learning opportunities, supporting the creation of green communities. In addition, we do dive into how natural places like parks and UNESCO sites can offer experiential learning possibilities. And we note that natural settings such as parks, gardens, forests, beaches, green roofs, wetlands, and permeable pavements can be harnessed to both mitigate and adapt to climate change, while also addressing other sustainability challenges. In tandem with this, we explore how UNESCO sites, including biosphere reserves, World Heritage sites, and geoparks, can be leveraged by municipalities to develop practical green learning activities. These places can provide real-world, localized examples of climate and sustainability challenges and solutions which can really connect people to their local environments and cultures. So, for example, we see that with natural places, we can create experiential opportunities for the public to really learn local solutions for things like managing rainwater to minimize flooding from storms, or even they can learn about installing green roofs to battle urban heat islands, as well as planting native species to increase biodiversity. Just to say finally, when it comes to learning places, we also unpack how digital places encompassing social media platforms, virtual reality, games, and online repositories can also foster lifelong learning for green communities. And in short, in the guide, we do consider how each of these places can offer unique opportunities for engaging learners of all ages and backgrounds in green learning. Just to say, we pay particular attention to how local governments can support these places by both providing infrastructure and funding while facilitating or incentivizing partnerships that nurture lifelong learning for climate action. And there is also very relevant guidance in there on learning places for other actors too, including civil society organisations, educational institutions, change agents, and others. I'll bring it to a stop there. Thank you so much once again, and over to you, Edith. Many thanks.
Thank you, Katie. So we'll move to the next section, and this will be introduced by Ms. Anastasia Tikhonova, who is a climate change and education specialist at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And FAO is also one of the co-coordinators of the Pillar 4 on Greening Communities within the Greening Education Partnership. And the organization has made such crucial contributions also to make this publication happen. And thank you so much for your engagement in this process. Anastasia will now introduce the chapter on what is learned and how is it instructed. Anastasia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Edith. And again, just want to say thank you. And it was an immense pleasure for me as well to work with all of you and with all other amazing contributors to this document for this last couple of years, and I'm happy to celebrate the launch of it today. So let me now take you to this section of the guide on how and what to learn. So as we explain in the guidance, effective green learning really has to be holistic. It touches our hearts, our heads, and our actions, which is like so-called cognitive, emotional, and behavioral dimensions, meaning what we know, how we feel, and what we do. So when we talk about what to teach in efforts to support greening communities, the guide covers several key content areas. These are climate science, biodiversity, climate justice, resilience, post-carbon economies, and sustainable lifestyles. We also stress how important it is that learning is locally adapted, inclusive of indigenous people and indigenous knowledge, and also grounded in community priorities. Then there is also a question of how learning can be fostered. And here we look into participatory, experiential, and culturally relevant approaches that really connect learners with their local places and realities. We also highlight the value of focusing on relationships, including through communities, places, and stories, which are all very important when we teach about climate and sustainability issues. And in this context, really emphasize the power of learning through meaningful hands-on experiences. So, like, for example, activities such as community mapping, eco audits, mini action projects can all be very helpful for learners to make concrete links between human activities and climate change. And this can help local communities understand how they can tackle climate change by addressing local issues, by shifting their everyday habits and sparking real, tangible action in the community where they live. So, in short, the guide unpacks how it is important to make climate and sustainability issues relevant and meaningful to the learners. And also it offers very practical steps to help make that happen. Thank you, and over to you, Edith.
Thank you, Anastasia. We will now move to section 4. And this one is about how to develop green learning strategies for communities. And we'll introduce the action planning assessment tool for greening communities as well. And for this, I would kindly ask Ms. Nicola Chopin to take the floor. She's a senior project manager in the monitoring and evaluating climate communication evaluation project, MEES project. And Nicola and together with Professor Marcia McKenzie from the University of Melbourne have made an invaluable contribution also to shaping this publication and contributing their expertise in climate change education and monitoring, and bringing all the great content that was developed within the drafting group into this concise and practical format and supporting the editing process. So a big thanks to you, Nicola and Marcia. And Nicola, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Edith. It was wonderful to be involved in helping to develop this important document. And on behalf of the MEES project, just would like to extend a big congratulations to all of the members of the drafting committee, the communities pillar co-chairs, and the Greening Education Partnership for launching this important document. So after exploring the who, where, how, and what, the guidance then outlines a 6-step process for developing a green learning strategy. In general, the process we recommend is participatory, iterative, and adaptable to local contexts. As outlined in the guide, when beginning to develop a green learning strategy, research can be undertaken to build an understanding of the community's existing climate and sustainability learning landscape. With this spirit, the guide includes helpful tools for mapping relevant policies, stakeholders, community needs, and delivery capacities. The next step is to engage key stakeholders and partners. Engaging different actors early in the process and working collaboratively with them can help ensure that the strategy reflects the needs and interests of a broad stakeholder base. Partnerships can also help provide capacity for carrying out shared development and implementation work. At this point, it can be helpful to create a multi-sectoral committee with the responsibility of developing the learning strategy. This can help ensure that sufficient time and energy is devoted to the planning process. And in addition, bringing stakeholders together from multiple sectors can help to foster broader engagement and leadership over the strategy. The ultimate output at this stage is a green learning strategy that includes an overall vision, long-term objectives, and an action plan that specifies how the vision and objectives will be achieved. The strategy should be as comprehensive as possible within available resources and validated by a broad base of stakeholders. Once the co-designed learning strategy has been finalized, it's important to effectively communicate the strategy. And this means using a range of communication types that consider all types of stakeholder audiences, including those with little knowledge or belief in climate and sustainability action. The guidance outlines the importance of reaching a broad stakeholder base to ensure all stakeholders are aware of the strategy, and it also highlights the importance of developing a dissemination plan that helps stakeholders understand how they can participate in implementing the strategy. This can help speed up implementation. And finally, monitoring and evaluation are essential for tracking progress and improving implementation over time. And the guidance highlights the importance of iteratively improving so that you can start with a strategy that works for your community at the time of development. And as the community becomes more and more committed and able to green through lifelong learning, ambition can be increased over time. So finally, an action plan for greening communities. When you are developing the green learning strategy, we also provide an action planning assessment tool in the guide. And this comprehensive tool can help be used by communities to examine their progress and help identify whether they are a greening learner or a greening leader. The tool also provides checklists for the types of green learning activities that can be done in different learning places with different stakeholder groups. The activities listed in the guidance can help give you ideas for the types of actions in your community that can be taken to green through lifelong learning. The tool can also be helpful for identifying gaps, setting priorities, and helping to define how you will measure progress in your community. And importantly, the tool has been developed to be flexible enough that it can be adapted to local contexts around the world. So this means that a wide array of communities, from small towns to megacities and everywhere in between, can build on existing strengths and collaborations across sectors. So I will leave it there. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Edith.
Thank you, Nicola, for sharing these very practical materials. And we would now like to hear from the participants of the webinar, and we have prepared a Slido activity. The link will be shared in the chat. Please open it and respond to the questions. And the question I can already mention, how could you see yourself using this guidance in your day-to-day work or life to support the greening of your community? So we have heard now quite a bit about the objectives of the guidance, the kind of stakeholders that can be involved, where the learning can take place, but also the more practical suggestions that are included in the guidance in terms of developing a strategy and implementing it, and self-assessment of where a community stands. So we'll be looking forward to hear from what we have presented, how you see yourself using this guidance, of how can it be relevant to your community. And I see that the first responses are coming in. It's good to read that it's an inspiration to share it with a variety of stakeholders. And this is indeed, we see it as a guidance materials to be used by local governments, but very much also by other stakeholders to also make local governments accountable on developing comprehensive strategies and to coordinate the work of different stakeholders at the local level. We can see that participants want to share it with different partners. Also good to read from the European RC network, very important strategic partner, also involved in the, through United Nations University, involved in the Greening Education Partnership. It can be initially used as a prompt for reflection, of course, on what is already going on in communities and what can be done. yeah, we can, that's an interesting one as well, to link it to community tourism, and communicating it with local actors. So all in all, I hope, I mean, we will save these responses and also get back to promoting, get back to these when promoting the guidance. And as we also plan to organize several capacity building workshops around how to use the guidance and how to work with it, I think that this feedback can be really relevant to us. Also good to know that it can be a good resource for further research. This is also one of the steps that was indicated in developing a comprehensive strategy for green communities, to reduce food waste. I can read here. So it's really nice to see these diverse ways in which the guidance can be useful. And please feel free to further contribute to this little repository of further promoting the guidance. And we can slowly move on to the next item on our agenda. So in the next part, we would like to take a look back and share with you about how this document was created. And we have already indicated that the document was created in a co-creation process that involved a drafting group and many different experts. But I think it's been a really interesting journey and also quite particular processes. Almost everyone involved volunteered for this task, which was also time intense and requested a lot of the expertise of the different partners involved. And one of the partners that was involved was Nele Fischer. She's a consultant in the field of education, innovation, future thinking, and she has supported us in designing the co-creation process, and she has accompanied us throughout as a facilitator. She made sure that we kept on track, and that yeah, in that way, she was a really important person to also hold the group together and to ensure that progress is made. And so I'm looking forward to reflecting once again on the process. And please, Nele, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Edith.
I think Paolo will share this.
Cool. Thank you. You can already click to the next one. Yes, thank you. It was a huge honor for me to facilitate this whole writing journey. And as Edith, you have mentioned at the beginning, the guidance document shall support communities across the globe within their special contexts and localities. And I think to make that possible, it was so important for us to have this huge, large drafting group with all this variety of expertises and perspectives and all this coming together to create that document. And working with this diversity is a pleasure and also a challenge if the outcome should be one concise document. So we want to share a bit of our experiences here. Maybe also as part of the learning journey and maybe inspiring others to come together in such a co-creative, collaborative writing environment. On the right side, you see a bit of our journey, which has started in January 2024 with the formation of the group, and then went through several different stages of writing as individuals, as smaller groups, as a big group, reviewing across drafting group members, across the whole chapter, and even beyond. And what we did was trying to balance the power of this wisdom of the crowd and the focus of individual work. So basically, we undertook such an iterative writing process, coming together in the full drafting group in virtual meetings to inspire, to discuss, to align, splitting up in smaller groups. First of all, chapter groups, focusing on different parts of the documents, in then different chapter structures also. That produced a lot of content, discussed, put together individual contributions again, sending this out to the whole group for reviewing, for adding, for shifting things from one chapter to another, realigning and so forth. And we circled around our content. And this was also made possible through the work of more focused editing, especially by those coordinating the group and by single members who were kindly enough sharing some extra time and extra energy into this specific work. And if you click to the next slide, you can see some impressions just that we want to share from the supportive infrastructure that we used. Because, of course, working globally, coming together was quite a challenge. So we used, of course, collaborative documents in a shared folder structure, which were really crucial for us to align and to keep track of what others posted, wrote, commented, and so forth. And we worked a lot with a whiteboard that helped us tracking a bit of the process and the whole stages we were in, but also helped us to align and capture discussions. This was also where we did a little visioning exercise to imagine a green community, to align on what the possible outcome of such a document's contribution could be, and where we were continuously trying to get together all the pieces and the different insights and thoughts. So this is just a little bit of sharing of how we worked. And a big thanks to all of you. It was a pleasure facilitating that process and to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nele. So I think this process is quite self-reflective of the tool that was produced, because in the communities guidance, we promote collaboration very much. We promote joining forces, and this is also what we did in developing it. So we heard that there is a large group of experts that was involved in the co-creation of this document, and we have invited them to send us a short video snip or a photo or a note that they would like to share. And we are happy now to share this as a compiled video, also as an introduction, representing all the members of the drafting group. Not all are presented in the video, but I think it gives a nice impression of the people who were engaged in this process. We can start the video.
To me, greening community is about rebuilding our bond with nature, feeling that we are part of something bigger, no matter how far we live from it.
I am Professor Jiajin Li from Shanghai, and the guide will make the world clean, beautiful, and sustainable. Thank you.
Such a great experience to work together with all these amazing people. So for me personally, it was a perfect example of lifelong learning.
Greening communities for me is about people learning together and making our everyday lives more connected with nature.
Green learning is internalized best in authentic community contexts. It was an honor to be part of the team shaping this narrative.
For me, greening community's hope is turning streets into gardens, neighbors into friends. That's where happiness grows.
Greening communities means supporting the spaces and people who ensure all members of the community of all ages and backgrounds can learn about climate change and get involved in local action on solutions. For libraries, sustained collaboration with local governments and formal, non-formal, and cultural education partners is at the heart of building resilient green communities.
A big thank you once again to all the members of the drafting group. And I think these are really nice messages also on what this guidance and what greening communities means to these experts. We can now move on to a new platform that we would like to introduce. During the 3rd annual meeting of the Greening Education Partnership, a new online platform was introduced, which is currently being developed by the CHEP with the purpose of showcasing countries' efforts and advancements in greening education. And this platform is also to serve as a global tracker for greening education. And so it very closely relates also to what we are proposing in the Greening Communities Guidance, where we have a self-assessment tool. But of course, it will also, to drive global change, it will also be necessary to monitor advancements at the global level and to have indicators that can be tracked over time. And this dashboard is a really interesting initiative in that regard. And we're very pleased to have with us Katerina Ananidou. She's a program specialist at UNESCO, and she's the coordinator of the Greening Education Partnership. And we very much look forward to looking into this platform. Katerina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Edith, and good morning, good afternoon, colleagues and partners from around the world. It's a great pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to also present the dashboard. And also, of course, I would like to thank on my side too the colleagues, the drafting team, all our colleagues and partners from UIL, from the FAO, from the World Sky Movement, that has been engaged in this effort to develop the Green Communities Guidance. We're very pleased with the outcome. So as Edith said, it's a pleasure to share with you today an update on the progress of the JEP Global Monitoring Platform. Some of you who may have attended yesterday's 3rd annual meeting of the partnership may have already had a first glimpse of this new platform, but it's a great opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to present this work again to the wider UIL community. So I would like to say at the start that this platform is developed in phases, as you can see on the slide. So it will be, we see it as a living and evolving space, a bit like the partnership itself. So we will have new information and data and updates that will be continually collected and shared as we are collecting them. So this phased approach allows us to integrate new pillars, new data sets, new commitments as the partnership grows. So a public link will be launched. The public link to the platform will be launched at the end of phase 1, which will be at the end of this year. And that first phase, what will feature is the country profile pages for all the member countries, all the member states of the partnership. A first set of global indicators for pillars 1 and 2. And an initial set of best practices and news and stories that we are collecting also from our partners from around the world that are working on the ground in greening education. So this partnership is being designed this platform, is being designed as a shared space where information from all our partners will be brought together, and we do see it as a global hub for greening education in order to monitor progress and both globally and also at the country level. The pillar now, since this is, I think maybe the pillar on greening communities might be more of interest to the audience of this webinar. This pillar we see it as cutting across all the other pillars, because in many ways it reflects how individuals experience and respond to and are affected by greening schools, by green curricula, teacher training, and the systems globally. So throughout, we know that throughout the drafting process of the Greening Communities Guidance, you have gathered a very rich collection of case studies, community level case studies. And again, the diversity and the depth of these examples highlight the cross-cutting nature of greening communities. And as we move forward with the phased integration of the 4 action areas, the 4 data from the 4 pillars of the partnership, we will be sharing these case studies gathered in the context of the development of the Greening Communities Guidance by next summer, so summer 2026, in a few months' time. And this will allow countries and partners to access them directly on the platform. So maybe I can move on and we can take a look at some of the current features of the dashboard as it currently stands and as it will be initially released at the end of this year. So on the home page, users will be able to track global progress across the 4 pillars of action of the partnership. Maybe we can, yes, sorry. So this includes the number of green schools that are aligned with our green school quality standard, the percentage of countries that have a green national curriculum framework, and that is data that is based on analysis by our colleagues in the MESI project that we heard from earlier in the webinar. There will be an interactive world map and best practices, news features, and links to the 4 pillars pages. And you'll be able to hover on any of the data points to see the source of information. And for pillars 3 and 4, the targets have not been set yet by the partnership. So data on these and indicators will be added as targets are defined and established by the JEP members. So maybe if we can now navigate, just as an example, into one of the country profiles. If we navigate to a country, we will be able to see the data collected across the 4 pillars on the 4 pages. Again, as I said, for pillars 3 and 4, the targets have not been set yet. So for pillar 4, if a country has a UIL, if it's a member of, if it has a learning city, we will continue to have it's featured there, and we continue to have the link to the UIL website on the country page. And again, as I said, once the target and the mechanism to track the target are set, then these will be displayed under the pillar 4 as a first item. The country profile page will highlight country commitments, will showcase concrete progress that has been made, and the pages will serve to gather information submitted directly by our member states, by our countries, collected by the JEP Secretariat, research contributions from our partners, and as I said earlier, the data sources, of course, will always be available. Users will be able to hover over the data point to see where the information comes from. So the space on the whole, our vision for it is to be a hub, a holistic hub that reflects how we are advancing on greening education across all action areas. So again, just to reiterate that the public link for phase 1 will be made available at the end of 2025, so in a few weeks' time. And we hope and we plan by the summer 2026 to have integrated the Pillar 4 greening communities. So please stay tuned and watch this space as we continue to develop this interactive and platform. And thank you again for your partnership, for your collaboration, and for your support to the Greening Education Partnership. Thank you very much, and back over to you, Edith.
Thank you so much, Katharina, for introducing this highly relevant platform, and we very much look forward to seeing it fully developed at a later stage and online. I think it will be very useful. Thank you so much. So with this, we now have a few minutes. We don't have that much time left, but we have a few minutes left. And we saw some questions also posed to us and the speakers in the Q&A box. And I would like to maybe start with one question and give a quick reaction to this. And I will also invite the other speakers to contribute. So we have a question, to what extent does the content cater for developing countries, and what are the implementation considerations? So this is something that we also discussed several times in the drafting group and throughout. How can this document be relevant to such diversity, not only of communities in terms of not only in terms of size, but also in terms of socioeconomic context, in terms of infrastructure that is available, in terms of political and cultural contexts. So of course, this is a challenge to develop something that is relevant to such diversity and still specific enough to be useful. What I would say is that particularly the annex that provides a checklist of activities that lead to developing a green learning strategy for communities is a really good starting point, because it enables stakeholders to start a first reflection exercise of what is happening already in a community. And it doesn't really matter if you have very vast resources available, but it can just help maybe also to become aware of what is available in the community that stakeholders may not necessarily have been aware of. And so I think this self-reflection exercise and the assessment of where you stand and what is possible can be really useful. Also to say that we really see this as a first step. So this is a document that provides initial guidance. What we want to do is to develop capacity building and training seminars to implement the guidance. We work at URL with the Global Network of Learning Cities, where we also have cities of very diverse backgrounds. We have included in the guidance practical examples that illustrate how civil society organizations, how local governments, how different groups of change agents are already supporting climate action with regards to the different sections that we've covered in the guidance. So I think the document really provides a lot of very practical connection points, and we will do our best to further enhance these materials with interactive sessions and further materials that can be useful. I have another question, and I would maybe invite Cynthia to give a brief response to that one. And this question is about how are civil society actors trained to understand and implement evidence in concrete practices, and where does this training take place? So maybe you can share a little bit from what the World Scouts are doing in terms of providing training to different change agents. If you can take just a couple of 2 or 3 minutes, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, Edith. I think, and I've seen a couple of questions similar to that, because we are moving into greening communities where we are all diverse. The entities are different in nature. They operate in different ways. And that, as Nele mentioned, it is a value, and it becomes a challenge when it comes to unity. In our case, that we leverage most of our operation through volunteers, we try first to have a strong system to support volunteers in developing their capacities, in mentoring, but also in empowering them with timely information, with support from the executive staff, trying to leverage on the burden from that, but also to work together and design together learning opportunities, capacity building that cater to the different needs in different countries. In our case, we operate in 176 countries, different cultural settings, different backgrounds. So we try to cater to the different natures, and that's where we invite volunteers from different countries and settings to help us design based on tailor-made. That's one way. The other is that we try to develop capacity in specialized volunteers, so that this body of volunteers, we call them World Scouting consultants, they can become a support that receive additional capacity both in specific topics, let's say how to work with young people, how to work with indigenous communities, how to work with women. We try to give them capacity in specific topics, and also transversal capacity on consultancy, mentoring, leadership, communication, so that combined knowledge, it's also part of our network of lighthouses. They can also support the operation on the ground. They carry the know-how of the organization, and it extends the capacities that sometimes NGOs we don't have, because we don't have all the resources. But I think empowering, identifying leaders, identifying ambassadors, and developing the capacities of people already in the communities is the best way to amplify the impact.
Thank you, Cynthia. I very much agree with that. Thank you so much. So with that, we have more questions in the chat, but I'm afraid we are very close to the end of the webinar. So as mentioned, well, this webinar is really marking the launch and the celebration of completing and publishing this important document. It is also the beginning of a process of giving green communities a push forward and supporting comprehensive and well-coordinated learning strategies for climate and sustainability action. And we much look forward to these next steps. And so now I will hand over to Mr. Raul Valdez-Cutera. He's the Chief Program Coordinator at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and he's also the leader of the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities that very much supports sustainable development at the local level. And from my side, I would like to thank all the speakers and goodbye to everyone. Raul, the floor is yours for the closing remarks.
Many thanks, Edith. First of all, a big congratulations to the different teams for bringing this valuable outcome. The product is amazing, but also important to mention the process, which was so rich, so full of experiences. So big congratulations. And also thank you very much to each of the participants today on this event. It has been wonderful to see members of the Greening Education Partnership, representatives from UNESCO Learning Cities, civil society organizations, policymakers, educators, and passionate advocates for climate action join us to celebrate the launch of this Greening Community Guidance. I very much enjoyed the fruitful contributions from today's speakers, taking us through the guides. Many thanks for sharing your insights, particularly regarding how the guide fits into the broader Greening Education Partnership and what its chapter will offer to users. It was also wonderful to hear directly from members of the guide's drafting group and to learn from you all how you could envision yourselves supporting its implementation worldwide from where you are. As the UL director mentioned earlier, this guide is more than just a publication. It is a call to action. We truly hope that it will serve as a practical, inspiring tool that can help to inform efforts to greening your community through inclusive lifelong learning opportunities, whatever you are in a megacity, in a small rural village, or elsewhere. From the perspective of UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities, as a next step, we are very excited to accompany learning cities in their efforts to implement the guidance. In the framework of the new GLC Academy initiative, we look forward to offering tailored capacity building opportunities to members of the GNLC and creating spaces for ongoing peer exchange and practical action encouraged by the guide. We also hope this new tool will inspire communities across the globe to develop new opportunities and to build existing efforts rooted in practical action, making a tangible impact and, importantly, ensuring the needs of learners are at the heart of what we do. Before closing, I would like to once again highlight that the co-creation process behind this guide has truly helped to ensure its content as relevant and practical as possible. Thank you once again to all partners involved in the co-coordination of this guide's development, to members of the drafting group, to our colleagues at the Greening Education Partnership Secretariat, and others for your invaluable collaboration over the last 2 years. We look forward to our ongoing engagement with you through the Greening Education Partnership in our efforts to green communities through lifelong learning. Together, we can build a more resilient, regenerative future for the planet, future generations, and ourselves. Thank you very much.